why people suddenly start ignoring you, what it really means. Have you ever felt the sting of someone suddenly pulling away, leaving you questioning what went wrong? It can feel like a personal rejection. But what if I told you that this moment of silence holds a deeper meaning, one that can guide you toward greater self-awareness, peace, and happiness? Today we'll explore why people start ignoring you and what it truly reveals about both you and them. This is not just about understanding others, it's about unlocking the wisdom within yourself. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll discover a path to true emotional freedom and fulfillment. Number 1. Shifting priorities. Understanding the natural flow of change. Have you ever experienced the sudden feeling that someone important in your life has begun to pull away? That sense of being ignored or overlooked can feel painful, especially when you're unsure of the reason. But one fundamental truth is this: people's priorities shift over time. It's a natural part of life. What once felt urgent or necessary might lose its significance as new experiences, relationships, or challenges arise. How often do you focus on your own changing priorities as you grow and evolve? We all undergo personal shifts, whether it's a new job, a move to a new city, or a change in personal goals. As life unfolds, we're constantly reassessing what matters most, which means our attention naturally diverts to where it's most needed. Relationships too follow this pattern. Sometimes people begin to focus on different aspects of their life, and it's not necessarily a reflection of their feelings toward you, but rather the flow of their own journey. Think of this not as an act of rejection, but as a signal that both you and others are evolving. We often take these shifts personally, but it's important to recognize that everyone's path is unique, and sometimes their priorities change for reasons that have nothing to do with you. By acknowledging this natural ebb and flow, we can free ourselves from feelings of abandonment or hurt. Happiness comes when we understand that people change, and so do we. It allows us to focus on our own growth, knowing that life is about evolving together, not holding on to the past. Embrace this change, and you'll discover the peace that comes from letting go of attachment and allowing life to unfold naturally. Number 2. Emotional distance. The space we all need to heal. Have you ever felt someone begin to drift away, only to realize that it wasn't necessarily about you, but about something they were dealing with internally? Emotional distance can often be a sign that someone is navigating their own struggles, and it's not always a reflection of your relationship with them. The truth is, every one of us needs space from time to time, whether to process emotions, recover from personal difficulties, or simply find clarity. Let's pause for a moment. Think about a time in your own life when you needed emotional distance. Perhaps you were facing a challenging situation or a period of personal growth. During those moments, you might have pulled away from others without meaning to hurt anyone, but simply because you needed space to reflect, heal, or regain your strength. This is something we all go through. It's a natural part of the human experience. When someone starts to distance themselves from you emotionally, it can feel like a personal rejection, but in reality, it often has nothing to do with you at all. It's about their need to heal or deal with their own emotional battles. They may be going through something they're not ready to share, or they might be overwhelmed with their own life pressures. By understanding this, you release the grip of fear or resentment that may have been building inside you. Imagine how freeing it would feel to understand that emotional distance doesn't equate to loss or failure. Instead, it's simply part of the rhythm of life and ways that can lead to deeper understanding and stronger connections once the individual has found their balance again. Embrace this as an opportunity to focus on your own emotional well-being and trust that sometimes people need space to heal before they can return to relationships with renewed strength. Number 3. Perception of disconnection. Reassessing what we see. Have you ever felt like someone is ignoring you, only to realize later that the issue wasn't their actions, but your own perception of the situation? It's a powerful thing, perception. We can sometimes convince ourselves that we're being disregarded when, in fact, the connection is simply changing, or the person is distracted by something entirely outside of us. Take a moment and reflect. How often do you interpret someone's actions through your emotional lens, rather than seeing the situation clearly for what it is? When we feel ignored, it's easy to fall into the trap of assuming the worst. We start to think that the other person has turned away, that they no longer value us, or that we've done something wrong. However, often the issue lies in our own perception and the stories we tell ourselves in the absence of communication. What if someone's lack of attention isn't a reflection of their feelings towards you, but rather a shift in their own emotional state or a temporary distraction? People may seem distant not because they are intentionally withdrawing, but because they are preoccupied or struggling with their own internal battles. In those moments, the disconnection may be more about what's going on within them than about you. When we shift our perception, we open ourselves to a different reality, one where disconnection is not always intentional, and our feelings of being ignored may simply be a misunderstanding. By embracing this perspective, we begin to cultivate patience, understanding, and empathy, three vital ingredients for building stronger, more resilient relationships. Your happiness doesn't have to depend on how others behave. Instead, it comes from how you choose to perceive and respond to life's fluctuations. Number 4, unspoken expectations. The hidden barrier to true connection. How often do we expect others to read our minds, to intuitively know what we need, or to act in ways that align with our desires without ever expressing them? We all have expectations, whether conscious or unconscious, and when these expectations are not met, feelings of being ignored or unappreciated can arise. But here's the truth: unspoken expectations are a silent barrier to genuine connection and happiness. Think about it for a moment. How often have you found yourself frustrated when others didn't act the way you expected, but you never communicated your needs clearly? These unexpressed desires create tension and confusion, not only within ourselves but also in our relationships. The truth is, no one is a mind reader, and assuming they should be is a recipe for disappointment. Expectations, especially when left unspoken, often lead to misunderstanding and hurt feelings. When you don't communicate clearly, it's easy to build up a story in your mind about why someone is ignoring you or not responding in the way you had hoped. But the reality is, they may be unaware of your unexpressed desires or assumptions. Here's the key to happiness: clear communication is the foundation of healthy relationships. When we express our needs, our boundaries, and our expectations openly, we invite others to meet us where we are. This allows for mutual understanding and reduces the emotional strain that comes from unmet, unspoken expectations. Instead of waiting for others to live up to an unspoken standard, take the initiative to speak your truth. When you do this, you create space for connection, understanding, and, most importantly, the happiness that arises from truly being seen and heard. Number 5, reflection of their inner struggles, understanding that it's not always about you. Have you ever felt the sting of being ignored, only to later realize that the reason had nothing to do with you at all? Sometimes when people start pulling away or distancing themselves, it's not because of something you did or didn't do. Instead, it's often a reflection of what's happening inside them. The truth is, people's behavior is frequently shaped by their inner struggles, and those struggles may have little to nothing to do with you. Think about the times when you've been emotionally overwhelmed or under stress. In those moments, you may have inadvertently withdrawn from others, not because you didn't care about them, but because you needed space to deal with your own emotions. It's a natural reaction. We all go through phases where we're consumed by our own inner world, be it work stress, family concerns, or personal challenges. In such times, the people around us may feel neglected, even though we haven't intentionally shut them out. The key to understanding this dynamic is realizing that when someone ignores you, it often reflects their personal struggle, not your worth. They're processing something within themselves, something that they may not yet have the clarity or emotional space to share with you. Recognizing this allows you to take their actions less personally and to approach the situation with empathy rather than resentment. Imagine how much peace and happiness you can find when you stop internalizing other people's emotional turbulence. By acknowledging that their behavior is a reflection of their internal struggles, you free yourself from the burden of self-doubt and begin to see the situation with clarity. This understanding not only helps you release frustration, but also allows you to cultivate deeper compassion for both yourself and others. Number 6, growth and self-reflection. The power of looking inward. Have you ever found yourself feeling ignored or overlooked, only to realize that the situation offers an opportunity for personal growth? Sometimes, when people start distancing themselves from us, it can trigger a wave of emotions, hurt, confusion, or even frustration. But instead of focusing solely on the external circumstances, this moment can be an invitation for deep self-reflection and growth. Think about the times when you've had to step back and examine your own life. When people start pulling away, it's often an opportunity to look forward. Is there something you need to learn about yourself? Are there patterns or dependencies in your relationships that you have yet to address? Growth happens when we take responsibility for our own emotional well-being and use life's challenges as a way to become more self-aware. This process of introspection isn't about blaming yourself or believing you're at fault. Rather, it's about gaining clarity on your own needs, boundaries, and emotional responses. If we constantly rely on others to fill our emotional gaps, we'll find ourselves stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction. True happiness comes from knowing yourself deeply, from understanding your own value, and from learning how to nourish your own soul, independent of external validation. Take a moment to reflect. What can you learn from this period of emotional distance? What does it reveal about your own emotional needs, desires, and areas for growth? When you embrace self-reflection, you empower yourself to not only understand the dynamics of your relationships, but to take control of your emotional health. The more you understand yourself, the more you are equipped to navigate life's challenges with peace and wisdom. Number 7. Letting go of control. Embracing life's flow. How often do you find yourself trying to control situations, people, or outcomes? It's a natural instinct to want to hold on to the things that matter most to us, especially relationships. But what happens when, despite your best efforts, someone starts ignoring you or distancing themselves? It's easy to feel helpless, frustrated, and powerless in those moments. However, this is where the power of letting go becomes essential for finding true peace and happiness. Think for a moment, how does it feel when you release control and allow life to unfold naturally? The reality is you cannot control how others behave or how they respond to you. No matter how much you care for someone or how much effort you put into a relationship, you cannot force connection or guarantee that someone will always meet your expectations. Holding on too tightly only creates stress and disappointment. When someone pulls away, it's a reminder that the only thing you can control is your response. Trying to manipulate or force a situation rarely brings about the desired outcome. Instead, embracing the flow of life, accepting that people may come and go, and that relationships evolve, creates space for you to live with greater ease and emotional freedom. By letting go of control, you give yourself the freedom to focus on what truly matters, your own growth, happiness, and peace. This doesn't mean you stop caring or stop putting effort into your relationships. Rather, it means accepting that you can't control everything, and that's perfectly okay. True happiness is found when you release the need to control others, and instead, trust the natural course of life. In this space, you discover the strength to navigate any challenge with grace, knowing that your peace comes from within. When people begin to ignore you, it often signals an opportunity for growth, understanding, and self-reflection. Whether it's due to shifting priorities, emotional struggles, unspoken expectations, or the natural ebb and flow of life, the key to finding peace lies in how you respond. By letting go of control, embracing the changes, and focusing on your own growth, you can navigate these moments with wisdom and grace. Thank you for joining me in this reflection. May you find the strength to live with greater clarity, compassion, and happiness. Good luck on your journey.